Did somebody say, Deadman?
Look at the loot on the floor. That is everybody's dream.
Oh my goodness, he's gone!
Oh, he did! It's one of the most competitive tournaments so far.
I imagine that at the moment it's a lot of panic.
Can he get the hit in just before he dies?
Their names are going to go down in history.
Not used to it. Something that they don't normally experience in the normal game.
It looks like it's the moment we've all been waiting for.
He's still got a chance to win it.
Oh, the free KO! Way!
So there it is, folks. Deadman is coming back to old school RuneScape. Now, we know that you wanted us to spice up the experience from the last time Deadman came about, and boy have we made some changes in Deadman Reborn. So let's go and have a look at what those exactly are. Husky, talk through the players through one of the first changes.
Thanks, Ayiza. The most prominent feature that's coming to Deadman this time round is a 3-life system. Now, that's exactly as it sounds. When you spawn into the game, you will have 3 lives. Don't worry for the first 2 though, they will act exactly like a previous Deadman mode death. You will lose the items which you are not protecting, they go to the other PKer along with a bank key containing the top 10 most valuable items from your bank. On your final death though, that's where things get interesting. You will lose all of your combat experience and 10% of your skilling experience. Don't worry, you keep your questing your quest progress. That's pretty important. But yeah, straight back to the start again. And when we thought about what Deadman was for this year round, it was that high risk, high reward gameplay, really forcing players into this environment where they have to compete with each other to come out on top.
So you may be thinking, 3 lives, losing all of your combat experience is going to be absolute hell when a max level player charges towards you. Now, we thought about that as well, so we are going to make another change with Deadman Reborn, which is the introduction of combat level brackets. Now, these combat level brackets will essentially act as a barrier to prevent higher level players from being able to essentially stomp the lower levels. You'll be restricted to replaying on certain worlds that only certain combat levels can actually access. The first bracket will be combat level 3 to 35, and then it will go up to 36 to 70. Then we'll have 71 to 100, and then finally the last bracket will be combat levels 101 to 126. So you at least can have that knowledge that you're going to go out in some relative safety, that you're not going to go against someone who's a vastly higher combat level than you. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is going to be playing on the same, power level, because if you know RuneScape, then you know people like to min-max. And we imagine there's going to be a few players out there that are going to make the most powerful build possible with the pure intention of taking away all of your lives. So make sure you take that into account, play around it, and make it part of your strategy as well.
But that's not all that's exciting coming to Deadman Reborn. I mean, you're already thinking, I've got these lives to worry about, and now I've got these optimized people who are coming to hunt me down. This just sounds like it's going to be no fun at all, right? Well, that's where you're wrong. Because taking heavy inspiration from leagues, we're going to be introducing Deadman Sigils. These are going to fundamentally change up your gameplay experience, just like Relics did, and they're going to come in 3 tiers. They're going to affect combat, skilling, and utility. You can have 3 of these active at any moment in time, and you can swap them out whenever you want in a safe zone. This is going to save you feeling like the sigils that you got mean you're stuck to that build for the entire tournament, and they'll also allow you to try out all of the fun effects that we end up making for you. They can only be transferred through the Grand Exchange, and the best part is you get your first sigil to choose from as soon as you jump into the game mode.
So with previous Deadmans, there's always been a little bit of a gulf between solo players and those that are more interested in playing together as a team. Now, we don't want to remove the teaming element from Deadman because it does make up a huge part of what makes the game mode so great, but we are looking to make some changes that will help improve the solo player experience, but also make it a little bit riskier for everyone involved. So the first major change that we're making is actually removing single way combat and replacing it with single plus combat, which means that if you are in combat with an NPC, any other player can attack you at any moment in time. You won't be able to go ahead and box with any NPCs anymore. You'll always be favored in terms of PvP combat. So you have to keep that in mind. Everywhere that you enter is going to be dangerous unless you're in a safe zone. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that we will also be doing is changing some prominent multi-way areas into single plus. And this is mostly going to be helping those players that are looking to get certain quests completed without automatic quest completions. And then finally, the other change that we're making is preventing players from being able to be speared from single-way combat into multi-way combat. We want to make sure that the choice to be in multi-combat is dictated by the player themselves rather than essentially an army of spears.
So, with all of these exciting content changes in mind, the only question I have left is, what is Deadman without a finale? In previous iterations, we've seen groups of players form alliances for the final hour, whittling down the opposition until only 256 players remain, and at that point they are moved into the 1v1 section of the tournament. This time around, we're scrapping all of that entirely. Instead, we're going to take the top 2,048 players and put them straight into the 1v1 section of the tournament. This will be determined by total level, so those skilling sigils might be more useful than you think.
So never mind Deadman without a finale, what's a finale without a prize pool? Now this Deadman, we're going to have a very generous $32,000 on offer, with first place taking a grand total of $20,000. So maybe you do want to take this one a little bit more seriously than before and make sure your strategies are completely nailed down. So how about we get the blog live for Deadman, roll the VT, and in the meantime, I'm going to get myself a bank key.
Wait, you said this was a safe zone.
Look at the loot on the floor. That is everybody's dream.
Oh my goodness, he's gone! Oh, he did!
Danger is everywhere.
I imagine that at the moment it's a lot of panic.
Choose wisely if you are to survive. A grueling 4-week contest.
How fast did that just turn around?
That was so close. You were saying it was a one-sided fight.
With thousands of players. And but one chance of glory.
Their names are going to go down in history.
With all new empowerments.
He's still got a chance to win it.
It's a tournament like no other.
MMORPG is going nuclear!
Legends are not born.
Oh, free KO! No way!
They are created.
It looks like it's the moment we've all been waiting for.
Will you be ruthless enough?
And we're joined by Mod Ayiza on the sofa.
Hey!
Mod Husky got wrecked.
He did, mate. What can I say? I'm a formidable archeress, apparently. So.
I also want to hark back to did somebody say Deadman? Because if you didn't clip that, please go back and get it. It was awesome. Right, we've got a lot of questions about Deadman. We know you have probably tons you want to ask as well. So in the chat, feel free to ask. On Twitter, feel free to ask. First up, Mod Ayiza, when can players get into Deadman?
Okay, so we are aiming to release Deadman Reborn on the 25th of August. If that's going to change, we'll let you know as soon as possible. But so far, the aim is the 25th of August, so not long at all.
Very soon, very exciting. Right, let's. I have some questions about the changes we mentioned on the. With you and Husky mentioned. Let's start with lives, shall we?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so you mentioned the free life system.
Yep.
Question, scenario. You die, you lose 2 lives, you don't lose any XP.
Mm-hmm.
You die and you lose your 3rd life and you lose some XP. What happens on any deaths after that? You mentioned 3 lives. What happens next?
Yeah, sure. So when you lose your 3rd life and your combat experience is wiped, you lose 10% of your skilling experience, your quest progress saves. You essentially start the game over again, back to level 3 at the starting zone, and you get to re-choose one of the starting sigils that you get to pick from, and then you begin again with 3 lives. So you basically restart your journey, but with most of your skilling progress and all of your quest progress stored. But your bank at that point is completely wiped. You lose everything else.
So skilling progress, quest progress still intact,
yeah.
But you lose combat XP and you lose your bank back to level 3.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now, did you consider even harsher life mechanics? So almost 3 lives, 3 strikes and you're out?
Yeah.
Hardcore Deadman style approach.
Well, interestingly, originally, the initial conception of Deadman Reborn was exactly that. After the 3 lives, that was it. You had to start over again. Everything was reset. All your skilling progress, your quests. But we actually had like a very early kind of like player validation call. We pulled in some Deadman veterans, some people that had never played Deadman before, people that are interested in just PVM and skilling, and basically put this concept to those players and kind of said like, how do you feel? And as exciting as that 3 life system and the risk versus reward element came across really well in terms of feedback, it did seem a little bit too punishing, especially when you consider some skills in Deadman just aren't the most exciting to train, like agility or runecraft and that kind of stuff. So Yeah, we opted to be a little bit less harsh and make you lose 10% of that instead. But your combat does get wiped. And although it sounds really harsh, if people are out there like wondering, damn, I'm gonna have to start all over again, there's gonna be a lot of perks available to you. Check out the blog, wait till you're in game, because combat experience is gonna be a lot faster than it has ever been before in previous Deadmans as well, so. Yeah.
They really just push the risk reward element quite far still, even without the hardcore death rate.
Oh,
so
no, for sure. You know, you're running around on your last life and then, you know, suddenly some absolute beast comes towards you. You have to really think about it, especially when you're going out venturing. You know, it's no longer just about losing your items in your bank. The risk now is your combat levels as well. So,
absolutely. I mean, the other big thing that I think was announced that's really going to shake up Deadman here, the meta certainly, is Sigils. So, like, can you tell us how desirable you expect them to be? Like, they're tradable, like equipment and supplies. Do you think they'll be more expensive than the best equipment?
I think there are a very small number of sigils that will most certainly be the most expensive items in the entirety of Deadman. One of them in particular is so good that everyone is going to want to have it. But not all of them share the same levels of power. There are 3 different tiers after all. And you know, they'll come from different sources. You know, some of them will drop from normal NPCs, some of them will only be available from bosses, and some of them will have high chances in different areas generally as well. So it all really just depends, and at the end of the day, it's a player-driven economy, so you get to determine how expensive things should be. But I do absolutely see some of them being the most expensive items. Some of them will just become kind of like commodity sigils as well that you want to have with you all of the time, and that you want to switch in and out of, so maybe those ones won't be as expensive.
I certainly can't wait to see what people do with them. It's going to be fascinating to see how much they're going for. So is there a limit to the number of sigils you can use? Or could you just buy them all and activate them all, run around just gank noobs wherever you go?
Well, as fun as that sounds, there is a limit. So you'll be able to have a total of 3 sigils activated at any one time, and 2 of them can be combat related. And as Husky mentioned in the video, we have skilling and utility sigils as well. So yeah, you can own as many of them as you like. Granted, the only way you can buy them, in case you missed that, was through the Grand Exchange. That's the only way you can trade them. But yeah, you'll be able to have 3 activated, 2 of them combat related, or you could choose to have 3 skilling or 3 utility instead if you wanted to. And yeah, as long as you've got access to them, you own them, you can switch freely as and when you want in the safe zone.
Awesome.
So.
Sweet. So Mod Light and Mod Sani have given us some questions from the chat, but before we get to those, I've got a few questions about the final stages. So we mentioned a change, it being a series of 1v1s, rather than what some players might really fondly remember of the frenzy of the final areas, you know, chin chompers flying everywhere, ancient magics and ice cubes appearing all over, everybody spam clicking brews to stay alive, white dots running around in circles. So what led us to move away from that to the 1v1, the series of 1v1s?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest with you, Sween, I just didn't want to have to cast that again because it's an absolute nightmare. No, that's not the real reason, of course. As great as that was, Deadman, us bringing back Deadman is about making drastic changes and completely shifting it up so that it doesn't feel the same each time that you go into Deadman. And this was one of the most obvious things that we thought of, that there actually was a lot of feedback where, yes, a large amount of players did enjoy that multi aspect of it, but then there was a probably even larger portion of players that didn't, because you can play through the entirety of Deadman and you could have been the absolute best player, worked your arse off completely, got the best gear, the highest stats, and then lost it all through no fault of your own really, other than not being able to be in a good position with a clan or wrong place at the wrong time. And that felt awful for those kind of players. So yeah, we thought, you know what, whilst we've got the opportunity to change things, why not just see what happens if we just let all of the top people qualify instead. And those that did want to show their prowess as a solo player, so to speak, can do that now.
Listen, that makes perfect sense to me. Another question about the finale stuff. So how much of a break will there be between the end of qualifying for the finale and then the finale itself actually occurring?
Sure, so at the moment we are still firming up exactly how we will transition from the seasonal part of Deadman Reborn into the finale, just because the logistics of pulling across 2,048 players into different worlds is something that, yeah, takes a little bit of time. But we do anticipate that in between each round there'll be a few minutes where you'll be able to at least, gather yourself, take a few deep breaths, maybe dry your hands if your palms are a little bit sweaty like mine are right now. Yeah, so there should be a good break, and it might be that we go from the seasonal part ends the day before, and then the next day we go into the finale. So you have like that break at least to kind of like figure out what you're going to do into those 1v1 stage.
Cool, makes sense. And a similar question actually relating to breaks and during the finales and stuff. So I worked it out. It'll be 11 fights from start to finish in the 1v1 new stages. That's a lot.
It is.
Not just for caster, but also for the players at home. Will there be any breaks during those sections?
Yeah, I think similarly, in between each fight, especially if you're one of the people to, finish your fight really quickly, you've got to wait for the rest of the round to finish. You can have a longer break there, but we will put a mandatory kind of like, few minutes in between each round. Again, just so that we'll first of all have to move people across into the other arenas anyway, so there's a little bit of a break. But yeah, you should have, again, just a few minutes at least.
Yeah, I mean, even when we think about the broadcast that we might do on the night, we want to talk about the fights that have happened and cut back to that, analyse the fights before we go back in. So it is good to have the break there.
Right, so let's take some questions from the chat. Big thank you to Modlight and Modsani for gathering these. So I'll begin, and then Kieran, let's take it in turns, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. First one I've got is: will we get to see all of the sigils before Deadman is released?
No.
Okay.
Simple as that, straightforward. No.
No, you'll see a few. If the blog's already live, you'll see there's a few in there. I think there should be an image.
Not in, the blog is live.
Okay, we've got the blog live. So if you haven't already, head to the old school website. You can see the whole blog, everything that we've got planned for this Deadman. A lot of detail in there. But you'll see a sneak peek of 3 of the sigils that will be on offer and the kind of like effects that they'll provide. But no, we're not going to show you them all, because what would be the fun in that? You want you to figure out the strategy as you go along, make it a little bit more exciting.
Next question we got coming in is there still a grace period at the beginning of an account?
There is, yes. So as far as I am aware, when you start, you'll have a 1 hour grace period where you can't be attacked and you can't attack other players. That also applies when you move up to the next bracket in terms of the combat level worlds. So when you go from the 3 to 35 to 36 to 70, you'll have an hour of immunity then as well, so that you can obviously, get yourself together, figure out what you're going to do, and not obviously spawn in and just die.
Okay, so the next question we've got is from Twitter, from Viper Zav, and they've asked, do you have any negotiation tips for more vacation days to be able to play Deadman Reborn?
None that I would recommend or try and say on stream right now, because I'd give away some of my own tactics.
And you can't tell me those. No,
exactly. Unfortunately, my boss is right here, so it'd be probably a bad idea. Yeah, no, sorry.
Offer to split the winnings, maybe? I don't know.
Just use mobile. Just have a lot of toilet breaks.
Definitely.
I'm choking me up over here.
Sorry, mate.
We've got another question from Twitter from Unreal OSRS. Is it just PvP deaths or also PVM deaths that count for losing lives?
Well, interestingly enough, Deadman just so happens to be the game mode where PVM is actually dangerous again, because yes, you will lose lives if you die to PVM deaths as well as PvP deaths. The only difference being that if you died in a PVM situation, as long as it wasn't your last life, you'd be able to go back and reclaim your items from your gravestone like you would normally in the main game. But yeah, it would make you lose one of your 3 lives.
Cool, and just 2 more questions before we move on to the next section. So the combat level worlds, bracketed. What happens if you lose levels and you die, and then you don't meet that level bracket? Do you get booted?
You will, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you were to somehow fall out of the only way you can lose your combat levels is if you lose your 3rd life. And when you lose your 3rd life, you are kicked out of the game and you're asked to log back in, at which point you're level 3, so you can only get back into the main combat level world. When you reach a higher combat level, you'll be, again, kicked out and told to go to a different world. There'll be some kind of messaging in game just to kind of obviously handhold you a little bit and let you know that that's happening, but you won't be able to continue participating in a world that you don't have the combat level requirements for.
Cool. Awesome. And the last question we've got right now is Mr. Mammoth from Mr. Mammoth is here. Did the J-Mod recover from the bow shot?
Fortunately, I can say that Husky is alive and well. However, he has had to take a week off in order to fully recover.
Was that one of those tactics you were mentioning earlier?
Well, get your colleague to shoot you with a bow and get a week off work from sick. I didn't recommend that. That's just what I did with Husky.